Who owns this online business?
Our legacy technologies don't support microservices.
Well, if we actually had some processes that supported everything, maybe we could sell more.
We need to go headless.
We need to sell online.
Agreed.
That was a lot of chaos to take in. But honestly, Beth, Bob, when we're having conversations with clients, these are common pitfalls that people bring up when we're having discussions. What are your thoughts on that?
That sounds like a lot of meetings I used to be in before I joined the consulting world of Proficient, right? Like that's how meetings would start out, or we were blaming a different group or something like that. And really, the chaos is happening because of the changing demands on our customers and the business, and we just can't keep up right now. And that impact is really significant. What consumer needs want, like what the consumer wants and needs and expects is really important, but it's not the most important thing for your business. That impact on your organization and you figuring out how to make your organization like competencies and goals and strategies align with your customers' needs is really the most important thing you can do to make your business successful. And that's what we're going to talk about some more today.
I'm sure it's all about the technology. So, sorry. Let's start by really talking about, so we're really here to start talking about content and commerce. And what we've really heard from the marketplace, kind of like every topic around digital commerce or digital transformation or e-commerce or all the words that we hear, the platform companies are really creating this definition of content and commerce to really be, you need a experienced platform on the front end so that marketing can market to the customer. And then you need commerce to be entwined and integrated into that because you want people to buy at the moment of decision. And so they're not wrong, right? Like ultimately, you're absolutely looking to get those things lined up. But we think about content and commerce a lot different at Proficient. Content and commerce occurs when companies align the information that people need and want to make informed decisions in order to know if they're purchasing the right product. So, Bob, what are some of the things that you and I have been on a lot of projects together? We're implementing content and commerce, right? What are your thoughts around how companies are thinking about that?
Absolutely. So in a lot of cases, companies have different websites for their brand and for commerce. As companies mature, they're starting to realize that separation is causing a disconnect between learning about a product or a service and purchasing it, right? And so when you really have those two systems working together, a brand and your commerce, when they're working together well, then it's just a much smoother experience.
Absolutely.
Right. But so we all know. Oh, go ahead, Karie.
No, go ahead, Beth.
I was going to say, we all, like, almost everyone's invested in digital to some level right now. And it's not that they're just going to throw up a website and make it work anymore, right? Like, woo, we have a new website and here we go. Everyone's going to come and buy from it. It's making new changes and elevating yourself across that maturity that Bob mentioned, right? That maturity platform, that maturity progress to say, what can we do to make this not so confusing anymore and to make it easier in the organization? And it's not just about technology. It's about your entire organization and how everyone is looking at content and commerce and thinking about the buying journey and making sure that marketing and technology and sales are working together on this strategy.
Well, it's interesting, Bob, there's a projects we've worked on together where when we started, it was all about the build, about the technology. We've got to get this. We've got these requirements. We have an MVP. We've got to be launched by this time. And it's interesting because even when we tried to really have more strategic conversations with these companies, it was the build. I mean, they were just focused on that build and implementation. And that's really that technology mold, right? But what we're starting to see is those companies are coming back and saying, you know what, we got the technology right? We built things. Here's what we did wrong.
Right.
We
Yeah,
don't understand what our customers want, right? So, Bob, what are some of your thoughts around that? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. They just didn't have the big picture, right, of every piece that it needs to be handled in order for that to be successful. I mean, when you think about commerce or selling online, obviously the technology, at least from my point of view, is the first thing that I think of, right? You've got your website, you've got your different platforms. And so, companies will come to us and will implement just a fantastic content and commerce site. But what the company wasn't prepared for, and that's where we have the benefit of this series. The company wasn't prepared for what that would mean internally for them, right? It's kind of that if we build it, they will come mentality, and there's just a lot more that goes beyond. You have to support these new huge awesome systems that you're building, and so you really need that business buy-in.
A great example of that, Bob and Karie, is chat, right? It's pretty easy these days to put chat up on a website and, offer the online chat, but it goes so much deeper than just getting that bubble and box to appear on the website, right? Like, who's going to answer the chat? Are they prepared for the types of questions that the consumer or the customer is going to be answering? What if it's a technical product? Like, how do we route them to the right person? Like, you would never want me doing chat because I can't spell anything correctly. So how do you make sure your traditional customer care agents who speak know how to translate that into text? And how many chat windows can they manage at once? And what are your policies for sharing information by chat? And how long do you retain that data? Like, I could just keep going and going and going. It's a much bigger thing than just the technology of chat. It's the entire process through your organization and the new policies and skills and resources you might need to support chat.
Yeah, it's a great example because technically, to your point, Bob, how hard is it to implement chat technically?
Few minutes.
And to Beth's point, right, so you start talking about chat, it's beyond chat, right? It's communication, it's SMS, it's whatever, right? Whatever types of notifications, how are you going to communicate those notifications? How do your customers, whoever they are, right? It's not just the end consumer. There's a lot of companies that don't sell products to the end consumer. Their customer is an end customer who's maybe using their product, right? That's part of the challenges is that content and commerce isn't just we want to sell to the consumer. It's we want to deliver a much better experience. I've been in manufacturing most of my career, and our customers were offering our channel partners, right? But we had the same challenges marketing new products to them, getting their mind share, getting them engaged. Content and commerce in that scenario is just as important, right? That we're able to market to them. But we also want to drive leads, right? You want to get leads to those partners or for ourselves as a manufacturer or a distributor. So thinking about how systems can become together. Experiences can come together. Business processes internally, people can come together to deliver on a experience that is really handling all of those different engagements of B2B, D2C, B2C, big B, little b, whatever those are. Those are another buzzword, compliant position everybody needs to be in. We love buzzwords in this industry. But the reality is okay, that's great. Beth, how do you govern content? Like, how do you make sure that the information that you're putting up there is consistent across what might be siloed business units within your organization? What does that look like?
Well, you have to break down the silos, right? You can't just expect that someone's going to run from each silo and monitor the content that's going out. If you try to do that, it won't be consistent. So, right, how do you break down the silos? How do you have one source of the content that gets pushed out to the different people that need to consume it and use it? And thinking about as a business, what are the efficiencies you might gain from that? And then what's the the experience will be so much better for your customer, your consumer, because no matter where they go to look at your content, it's consistent and it tells them the same thing and it supports your brand and your reputation.
Right. And a lot of people think of commerce just in fulfillment too, right? So we hear a lot of like manufacturers, we believe, need to own the research journey, right? Manufacturers should be that source of truth for information on their products. Warranty registration, right? Warranty requests. A lot of those happen at the manufacturer level. It doesn't mean that you are necessarily going to disrupt your current go-to-market, right? You may still say we want our sales channel that we currently have to be the fulfillment arm. That is possible, right? It's really gets into these discussions as organizations like, how do we go to market today? Where are we successful? Where are we not? Do we want to enable or disrupt? What does enablement and disruption mean? What role do we play? All of those things are part of these decisions and conversations that really then get to when we implement technology. We have the process in our organization aligned to what the goals are here. How we're going to manage if there's disruption, right? How are we going to manage that? If we're enabling, how do we enable? What does enablement look like? There's so much of those conversations that we have with companies, especially now, right? Strategy is becoming such an important part where it used to kind of be a bad word. Nobody wanted to talk about it. We're really seeing companies rethink that, right? And we're glad because we want companies to be successful, but you have to have a plan.
Right. That's such a good point, Karie, right? You do business strategy and business planning all the time. Take that down a level and really think that into your commerce strategy and your digital commerce strategy. In particular, content and commerce, right? That's not just a buzzword or buzzwords or just a thing that we're going to read about or talk about in implementation. It is a methodology and it has to be part of your strategy and it really has to be interwoven into all the parts of your business. And that's what we can help so many organizations with.
And technology plays a key role, right? I mean, Bob, we're having more and more conversations about experience platforms tied to commerce platforms. And there's a lot of decisions that have to get made when you have those conversations, right? I mean, what are some of those discussions?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, obviously, the technology is the enabler, right, for content and commerce. And there's a lot of different platforms that can be used to support a content and commerce experience. But the two big pieces of that puzzle are a content management system and an e-commerce system. In most cases, they'll take the form of multiple integrated platforms that work together as a whole. But the goal is to have all of those systems working together so that the front end user experience is seamless, right? And there's a lot of decisions that need to happen along the way. And that's kind of, where you need an expert to help guide you through those questions. What system is going to be presenting the user experience at any particular point in the user journey? Again, the goal always is to keep that as seamless as possible to the front end user.
We also think about when you get into content and commerce, even from the technology side, Bob, there's a lot of other systems, right? You start getting into this best of breed approach. There are other systems. When you start that path, you're really saying we're going down this concept of best in breed, right? We're going to select that experience platform that is a best of breed. We're going to select a best of breed commerce. And the reason we're doing that is because we're focusing on what are each of these solutions good at. What are some of the other solutions that are so critical when we start talking about those decisions and best of breed?
Sure. Just like Beth said earlier, a lot of the decision points that you need are kind of what is your source of truth for any particular data point, right? So that you have a very clear definition as the administrator of that data. Where do I go to manage this, right? And so, you're thinking about things like, well, an e-commerce platform is the front end and the content system is working on the front end. What goes into it, right, from the data side? So you're talking about things like a proper product information management system. You're looking at, proper user database management and all of these different systems that will need to be properly integrated in order to really get that that seamless front end.
And when we talk about integration, it's not just like, let's connect the dots, right? It's also like CRM, right? CRMs are important technologies because you want to start thinking about that customer 360, right? But it's not just collecting data. It's how are you going to use that data? How does that data become actionable? Personalization, right? It's such a buzzword. What is personalization, right? It's a lot of things, right? And a lot of it is around who's interacting with me. What are they trying to accomplish, right? What is their job? If it's not a consumer, they probably have a job. It could be a consumer who still is buying this for a job, right? Those decisions are important because they may not want all of this splashy marketing information. They may just want a very simple dashboard. So as you think about this, it's understanding, and I love that you brought up PIM. There's also things like, I want transparency to my customers on actual inventory availability. I want actual transparency on when products are going to be available, which is so important today because we're having so many challenges around supply issues, right? Availability. Those tools, right? Order management systems and ERP, when you start getting into this content and commerce, your ERP should not be necessarily your source of truth for order information. Why? Where I came from, we had a lot of blanket orders that we supplied over a year, right? We delivered monthly over a year. It looked like our inventory was always in a deficit for certain products, but we had plenty of product availability. We could fulfill orders, but if we were relying on our ERP, it looked like we had a deficit in inventory and people couldn't order those products. You would not want that to be your transparency, right? You want it to be pricey.
Yeah, and I love it that you kind of brought us full circle, right? When you said, as a business, I want transparency into product availability. So that right there is a problem statement, right? They want to have that transparency available. So how do we make that happen? Well, we have to have the technology to make it visible, right? We have to make sure it's managed properly and it's available to the user. But then we've just come back to the business side again, where we have to make sure that we have, the people and the processes available to keep that inventory data up to date. So that's a great example.
And it's really about business needs and understanding business needs. And to your point, technology is critical, right? I mean, it is critical, but you should not lead with technology.
Right.
Because we've seen companies, I mean, Beth, we can talk about this for a million hours, right? How many people have we talked to who've invested millions of dollars and they're getting 1%, 2%, 3% return on their investment?
Right. They don't understand that combination of what their customers are expecting from them every day, whether their customer is an end user or a channel partner, right? Some of those things, and what they're able to do to make themselves successful, right? They're not taking that step back from the technology. It's a lot of should we do it versus can we do it discussions that need to happen, right? And I always love that with the technology partners. Your technology team probably anywhere can make anything happen. The question is that the right thing for your business to make happen at this time for my business?
Well, and like you said, right, is our business prepared for this, right? We talk a lot too about knowing what customers want, and that is critical, right? You have to understand what customers want. We're going to get into that a lot deeper in our next session, but it's also what can the internal business, as the seller, what can you do? Because you may not be able to do everything those customers are asking for because your data doesn't support it today. Your processes don't allow you to do that. Your data is not built that way. That's okay, right? So the reality is you need to have short-term goals and expectations of things you can start delivering on, tied to what are those longer-term things that I need that may take me years, right? And it's not like you do your data updates at a one given time, right? It's incremental changes. Tools like PIM are great, but we also talk to a lot of customers who think that if you dump all of your data from spreadsheets and your ERP and people's heads into this repository that now you have all this wonderful data. You don't. You have raw data that is not intended for public human consumption outside of your organization. Why
Unless you're
is
going to
that?
give them a decoder ring.
Unless you're going to give them, or a data translator,
right?
Somebody who sits in between who translates. Why is that? Because when we built our systems, we never imagined people outside of our organization were going to ever really see this. Well, now they are, right? This is what digital is all about. It's exposing that information so people can make decisions along their journey. I think a decoder ring should be in every box of Cracker Jacks.
And every software platform, ERP?
And every software platform, every ERP, every PIM. But it's
every
true,
ERP
right?
comes with one decoder ring.
Well, and when you start thinking about what does this mean, it's talking about your pricing. What is your pricing strategy for online? What do you expose in front of a login, behind a login, right? What are you trying to accomplish? All of those things, search, big topic. One of my favorites with Bob, when we talk about, search, when you start thinking about this whole concept of content and commerce, search isn't easy.
Yeah.
But it's always the search technology's fault. It's never the result, like the problem of the content or the keywords that are tied to our product or all the information about a product, that actually drives the search, right? So we're coming around to the circle again. So the technology, super important, but who's creating all the content that's going to drive the technology? And then what are your governance rules around who can change content or create content or decide a content element in your organization as well? So we could probably just keep coming up with all these full circle analogies all day, right, Bob?
Absolutely.
But I think the things to think of too is when we start getting into this whole concept of commerce maturity, digital maturity, organizations are recognizing their approach was not right, right? They're coming back and saying we need to think about this differently. We need to think about adoption. We've alienated our channel partners because we went direct without really understanding why we're going direct, right? Who are we targeting going direct? We've added, AI tools, to your point, Beth, to really fix this search problem because our technology. But the reality is, the platform may be a limiting factor in that equation, but so is your data. And most often the data tends to, that product content and information tends to be more of the blocker than the technology. And everything has a incremental step, like where are we today from a maturity standpoint? What's next? And then what's next, right? Because it's not, you're going to do this overnight. But as we really think about this, it's organizational maturity, right? Are we ready to really say that digital commerce, content and commerce, bringing these experiences together, whatever the terminology is are we ready? Are we truly ready for this? Do we understand our business impact? Are we willing to really look at ourselves internally to determine that it's time for us to change, to think differently, to be ready to have these hard conversations? They are hard conversations, right? They're not easy conversations. And then what does that look like for us? Where are we on our journey? What have we already done? What do we need to do? Where have we been successful? Where have we not been successful? All of those discussions are really part of this whole content and commerce journey. And in a lot of organizations, what we're seeing with more maturity is things like we're creating a center of excellence, right? We're elevating commerce above the individual business units and letting them operate as a separate entity. Why? Because they have the autonomy to make decisions that we don't have in these siloed. Now, those product groups can still remain independent, but they need to roll up to this higher team, right? Who has the autonomy to decide on the products, what the pricings are going to be, working collectively as an organization. So there's a lot more evolution we're seeing in businesses as they're starting to really think about this. You don't have to go, we're going to make a technology decision and go content and commerce immediately. And content and commerce is going to be different things from a technology standpoint for every single business, and that's okay. right? We're not saying there's one right or wrong way to do this.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's all about figuring out how to meet your buyers exactly where they want to be, but recognizing what you can do as an organization to be successful in that journey. And we're here to help break it down step by step.
Yep, absolutely. And beyond having the most expensive or coolest tools to do the job, you need to have an understanding of what that means and the correct buy-in to make it all happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of investment, people, investment in technology and investment in the time to really look at processes. And again, we don't want you to think that this is a blocker, like you can't move forward if you don't do it in an order, right? But there has to be a level of strategy. So you're undertaking your process with a clean understanding and an approach that gets you where you need to be. And it might be we need to spin up an MVP, but we're going to do these things in the background at the same time. We're going to go in this eyes wide open. I think that's a big part of it. So as we move into this content and commerce journey with you over the next several episodes, we're going to continue going deeper and deeper into these topics and how do organizations adapt and adjust and what does it really mean at these different decision points. And we're definitely looking very forward to doing this with you, taking you on this journey with us, sharing obviously our insights, our vision, what we've learned from working with other companies that we can help companies be successful in this journey and decision.